Chapter 0. A bright red sunset illuminated the ruined city. A man stood in the background with an axe in his hand. Looking at the city, he uttered only one phrase: "The world is destroyed," and no matter how much he struggles, he is surrounded only by death and devastation. Before all this, he was the guardian of humanity. Therefore, he was the first to face all the horrors. And now, when there is no hope left, there is no salvation in the world, he's fighting for his life anyway. A girl lying with a sniper rifle, looking through the scope and seeing a person. But a man would like to live at least one more day. She pulled the trigger, hoping for at least one. But thanks to everything he's been through, he's still alive. And, strangely enough, even in such conditions, before he could finish, he received a message. Surprised, after looking at the monitor screen, he continued anyway. That his adventures are worthy of a whole book. Looking at the monitor, he saw various articles about how to prepare for a nuclear war, and rosy comments on the post. But he doesn't care what the world will be like in the end. He is angry at mentioning these couch experts. He will live as before. After all, he must fight. With class, with luxury, well, as much as possible. Chapter 1. Seoul, the capital of South Korea, in which peace reigned. The children were smiling, but a powerful explosion occurred, because of which this day was called X Day. A nuclear bomb launched by another country hit exactly in the heart of Korea, running 110 days until day X. You can talk about the day when the world came to an end for a very long time. He was, to put it mildly, full of events. 3 years before the start of a nuclear war, Park Kyu, for example, was preparing for the future. From every iron, it was buzzing with might and main that humanity, in the usual sense, was already on the verge of collapse. However, only 2 groups of people were preparing for it. First of all, the most powerful of this world. In their position, you have to worry about everything. And secondly, people who really believed in the coming end of the world. They believed so strongly that they were ready to risk everything just to escape from reality. Well, Park Kyu naturally belonged to the second type. To begin with, he got rid of all his assets. After that, he began to greedily absorb all the information that, at least hypothetically, could help him survive. The first thing he took care of was finding a place suitable for shelter. Park Kyu asked a good question: where should he build it? He had 3 key requirements. First, sparsely populated areas where hardly anyone would come, even as a last resort, but still near the city. Secondly, the landscape should give him an advantage in the event of an attack. And thirdly, the price. All this needs to be accommodated somehow, within the framework of his budget. As a result, Park Kyu found a worthy place, a deserted forest belt near the Air Force Base on the outskirts of the metropolitan area. An elderly man asked Park Kyu from Seoul if he was, continuing to say that since they are neighbors, it is better to make friends. Park Kyu did not remember the name of this old man, but he remembers the last name: Kim. The owner of the land near the Air Force Base is Old Man Kim. Park Kyu, saying that he had found a place and it was time to build. He found employees who will help him with the project. They have everything they need, and he was going to work with them too. At first, the builders did not want Park Kyu to take part, but the price of the issue turned out to be quite small. A couple of bottles, a couple of plates. Old Man Kim came up and asked, "What are they doing here?" "They make noise and drink every single day," asking them at least for permission to do this. Park Kyu did not know if Old Man Kim's behavior was due to the possessiveness inherent in the outback or not, but he did not see any other reasons. And the fact is that no one was paying attention to him. A worker shouting at the old man that he was completely crazy and asked him to leave, to which Kim replied that he did not want to watch them spoil his lands. As a result, he just got in the way of everyone. The worker wanted to explain everything clearly to him, but Park Kyu asked him to calm down and said he would figure it out himself. He did not lie to his soul, because he himself is not a saint. And that day, his patience was completely running out. 950 days until day X. Park Kyu, while shopping at home, saw someone talking to Kim. The man who was talking to Kim saw no point in discussing it further, and he just asked them to rewrite the land for him, and they would take care of him. But Kim replied that he couldn't, to which the man, having forgiven, began to ask questions. Why the hell did Kim sell the land? Why did you stay here? After all, the man told him in plain text that he would take care of him, shouting at the old man to answer his questions, and reproaching him for giving his sister the best land, and all that was left for him was a collapsed house and rice fields, asking to give him at least something else. He has endured his father's obnoxious nature for years and asks him to be a good father for at least the last years of his father's life. Swinging at Kim, he shouted and asked why he was silent, and asking the question, will he give him the land or not? But Park Kyu decided to intervene in their conversation. But before he could say anything, the man sent everything and did not understand from where he got out. Turning around, the man said that he didn't care and was waiting for his land. Otherwise, he will burn everything here. As he was leaving, he shouted that he was warning. The grandfather from such a conversation with his son just sat down on the steps in silence. Maybe we'll smoke, Park Kyu suggested to the man. They started a dialogue in which Kim asked if Park Kyu had parents, to which he replied that they had died in an accident, to which Kim sadly replied, "It is clear." Park Kyu asked why he doesn't want to sell the land and just move. It must be difficult to deal with such an area yourself. After thinking about it, the old man replied that initially even that part of the land that he handed over to his daughter was a useless wasteland, just like this one. But who knew that the state would decide to build a 10-lane highway there? Returning to the conversation, the man wondered if he could sell this land and move. He just couldn't because of the memories. For the life of him he couldn't, and that's it. He said only one word, "Let's go." Park Kyu still doesn't understand what changed back then. But after that, the conversation, the old man's heart, compressed into a tiny dot, opened up, like a 10-lane highway. He stopped interfering with the construction, and the day before day X decreased and decreased, and now the day has come. A deafening roar shook the ground. After him, a belated siren announced the end of the world. The old man who ran up to Park Kyu said that his son lives in Seoul. Is he alive? And he asked me to find him. Park Kyu, looking at the monitor screen, remembered the conversation with Kim. Park said the old man's son was dead. The old man, clutching his sloop in anger, just stood there in silence. But Park Kyu, interrupting the silence, said that there would soon be a second wave of bombing, including in the center, so he strongly advised to stay in his bunker, to which the old man said that he would not be able to leave his house, but showed gratitude for the offer. Standing in the bunker, Park Kyu was looking at his phone, to which, without warning, he received a call from Kim Wang, a construction worker. Looking into the camera, Park Kyu saw someone and said that the people who did not die, or like those who are surviving with might and main, coming out with an axe. Park saw the same man with an axe. That's why he thought there were only enemies around. Chapter 2. The Field and the Remaining 852 Days. Kim is surprised to say that Park Kyu got in. Did he take down a boar without a gun? Stunningly praising him and saying what a great guy he is. But Kim also has a hunting license, and even the state praised his skills. Park Kyu, digging deeper, found out that old man Kim was a military man. His Walter is a useful thing anyway, but it won't save you from the horrors to come. Park Kyu has to keep an eye on his surroundings every second. After all, the Air Force base is very close. Both Korean and American troops are stationed on it at the same time. So are the Hunters, a squad specializing in fighting monsters. Excellent conditions to get the right weapon. At the moment, Park Kyu's plan is overly simple. When the war starts, he will immediately target the base near Gyeonggi-do. After the explosion, the base will be completely torn apart. He will put on the UGG and calmly take what he needs. And while Park Kyu was thinking over the details, an unexpected opportunity found him on its own. The man asked Park Kyu if he wanted to buy a gun for himself. 823 days left. His name is Kim Won-soo. Kim Wang says there are a lot of people like Park Kyu in China. He works for the company that Park Kyu entrusted with the construction of the bunker. He is a Chinese in Korea. He was in a gang. Kim Wang says that Western news is silent about this, but the whole of Inner Mongolia is suffering from monsters. People are dying. And, as he understands, Park Kyu does not want to be among them. Kim Wang still keeps in touch with his old colleagues. Kim Wang noticed that since Park Kyu had built himself a whole bunker, then the money probably wouldn't bite the chickens. But he came to Korea specifically to work. Kim Wang said that the bunker, of course, is strong. There is nothing to talk about, but with a gun at hand, it will still be quieter, right? Park Kyu thought that Kim Wang has a pronounced Yanbian dialect, although, as it seemed to him, he specifically used it to demonstrate his connections with the gangs of northern Yanbian. Park Kyu stated that he would look at what he has to offer, but only after construction, to which Kim Wang replied, "That's the deal, boss." At that moment, Park Kyu did not see any reason to refuse. The day of the sale, Park Kyu hired a private investigator. As they say, forewarned means armed. It turned out that Kim Wang had nothing to do with the Yanbian bandits. He was once a member of the Shanghai Triad, and the goods he was going to sell to Park Kyu were taken there as well. Kim Wang asked Park Kyu to come over for a second. At that moment, it flashed through Park Kyu's mind that he didn't really care where the weapon came from. Kim Wang saying that his guys will bring the goods soon, and you just have to wait. Park Kyu only needed a weapon, not his story. Paying attention to Park Kyu's phone, he asked Kim Wang, "Is my daughter writing?" To which Kim Wang replied that yes, his daughter was writing. She recently turned 7 years old. He constantly asks who he looks like and what kind of person he is. Distracting from the topic, Kim Van turned his attention to the fact that his guys had arrived and called to approach them. When Park Kyu approached, they said that there were 3 Type 56 rifles here, caliber 7.62, 300 rounds, 3 clips. One thing was for sure, the weapon was in good condition. The game was worth the candle. After going to talk to the car, Kim Wang said that everything is fine in Korea. Kim Wang turned to Park Kyu and told him that he remembered that Park Kyu had said that he would live alone in the bunker. Kim Wang also noticed that it probably won't be easy for one person. Thinking about it, Park Kyu replied that yes, there are problems, and he asked in response, "Is something wrong or do you want to help me?" Kim Wang replied that no, everything is fine. The owner is a gentleman. He just thought the shelter was so big in case someone decided to visit him, but Park Kyu seems to prefer solitude. But he's young and rich. Kim Wang, leaving, tells Park Kyu that if he gets bored, he can contact them. He knows where they work, although Kim Wang has no job left, and he would like to return to his daughter in the north. And apologizing for the joke, he didn't think Park Kyu would take it seriously. Returning to the matter, Kim Wang said that he would send the cartridges and clips after payment. Park Kyu thought that Kim Wang would probably come back and do what he couldn't do today, because in his experience, it doesn't look like a joke in any way, and sometimes cruelty is inevitable. Music can be heard coming from the bunker. These sounds turned out to be a phone call. Park Kyu, thinking that until Kim Won returns to his homeland, he will need to live somewhere and defend yourself with something. In addition, he knows the exact location of the bunker and its layout. But the moral dilemma was resolved very quickly. Kim Wang, heading to the bunker, said on the phone that he decided to personally deliver the parcel to Park Kyu, since the money had arrived, and he asked where he could leave his goods. After thinking about it, Park Kyu decided that there are bright sides to the current situation. Kim Wang came alone. Park Kyu, taking an axe in his hands, went out to fight with Kim Won, and I thought he should get rid of him before that changed. Standing in front of each other, they were ready for battle. In an instant, Park Kyu and Kim Wang had an axe fight. Hitting and dodging, no one was injured. They were just probing each other. But Park Kyu turned out to be better and landed a blow on Kim Wang's throat, winning it. Kim Won, not understanding who Park Kyu is. I started asking questions. Who is he? Soldiers or special services? And perhaps a martial artist in general. Kim Wang, realizing that he might die now, began to beg for mercy, screaming for Park Kyu to save him or help him. But Park Kyu said he was unlikely to be able to do anything. Even if he didn't finish him off, he would die of blood loss. Realizing this, Kim Wang asked Park Kyu to do it faster, holding a bloody axe in his hands, and looking at Kim Wang's dead body. Park Kyu heard the phone ring, thinking that Kim Wang had not come alone after all. But when he picked up the phone, he saw that Kim Wang had received a call from his beloved daughter. Wondering and wondering, Park Kyu looked at the messages in which the daughter was very much waiting for her father. But every minute counted, and Park Kyu wasn't going to waste his time, and it was too late to change anything. The 29th day after the impact, as soon as the radiation level dropped, Park Kyu went to the Air Force Base. In front of the base, Park Kyu couldn't believe his eyes. He found El Dorado. The weapons in this room would be enough for an entire mercenary group. Looking at this, Park Kyu thought that, as a result, his original plan had worked. But he still thinks sometimes, how would Kim Wang's races end up here first? Or if he hadn't contacted Park Kyu at all, would he have survived in this damned world? Did you meet your daughter? I can hardly believe it. Chapter 3. The phrase, "Hello, comrades." 337th is in touch. Today it told how to make a felt doll. 337's daughter just loves them. First you need to roll a felt ball. It won't be easy at first. The video Park Kyu is watching now was recorded after the war. The source of the video is a community of people who believed in the coming of the end of the world. Long live the apocalypse. Elon Musk, an extremely large entrepreneur, launched the Galaxy Link satellite into orbit. Therefore, even after the nuclear war, they still had the internet. When making this doll, Park Kyu thought it would be difficult at first, but then his hand would fill up. Thanks to technological advances, survivors can still keep in touch with each other. Continuing to listen, it said that after that you need to carefully process all the protruding parts, and voila, it's done. The person who directed this video immediately felt better. Asking the audience what is not so difficult, right? Park Kyu just looked at his work in silence, and saying that he saw something like this in a village where people bow to the members. 365 days after, exactly 1 year has passed since the beginning of the war. Although there were no more bombings, the enemies captured the entire region, and the government has lost all control over the situation, and the old life has become a long-forgotten dream. Park Kyu, looking at the forum, saw a conversation about refugees, having noticed that lately there has been more and more talk about refugees, in principle, as well as people who have not been online for a long time. People notice that these refugees are raiding shelters, and they don't think they're leaving anyone alive. Suspicion turned into fear and hatred. Park Kyu, sitting in front of the monitor, pondered that, if judged sensibly, it was not groundless at all. Pak decided to block the Defender user, the man whom forum users nicknamed the Hunter of People. From the very beginning of the war, a hunter of people posted posts with his deeds he didn't kill for fun. The reason was much more prosaic. It was a warning. The hunter wrote on the forum that it might be time to act more actively. After all, he got rid of all the survivors whose territory intersected with his, and thinking that it was time for him to check out a couple of guys who posted photos of their shelters. But when Park Kyu took him out of the blacklist to see the latest posts, Park Kyu realized that he had become addicted to killing. And anyone who follows the hunter's posts on a regular basis will become aggressive and suspicious. And then, Park Kyu received a notification that 337 was the one who made toys. I haven't logged in for a long time. 395 days after. Winter. People ask on the forum if their acquaintances and friends are alive. At the moment, the number of inactive users has exceeded the number of active ones. Everyone is already used to people disappearing, but no one knows when his turn will come, including Park Kyu. After seeing the car through binoculars, Park Kyu saw familiar faces. Director Hong and the workers who participated in the construction of the bunker. They started looting. They visit their clients again, smiling. Park Kyu said they have good support for their product. Nothing to say. Going to the closet and starting to open it. He said that since they decided to check on him, he would see them, standing with an axe in his hands with all the hospitality. Approaching the place, one man asked if they had come there, to which the other confidently said that this was exactly the place. Park Kyu told them that he was building some kind of underground hall, to which the man thought that this was definitely a shelter, but one of the group was wary, as the entrance was open. You never know, someone overtook them, or maybe it's a trap. So it's better for them to be on the alert, giving orders to Min Yu and Hyun Palm to go ahead. Moving on, with a gun and behind a shield. They were surprised. Seeing cigarettes in front of you, it's also a whole box. They thought it was a jackpot, but one of them didn't like it, and he thought they were being lured. The guys following them asked if there was a smell of corpses. They replied that there seemed to be no smell and everything was fine. A man from the street shouted for them to inspect the room. After all, someone had to be inside, continuing to tell them to move slowly and not to lower their shields. But it was too late. Park Kyu has already attacked them. Not understanding what had happened, the man opened fire, but Park Kyu managed to kill him. Screaming, the man wondered what had happened to his friend. Park Kyu kicked him and knocked the man to the floor. Standing over him with an axe raised, the man under his nakedness begged for mercy and not to kill him. But it was too late. The man who sent them inside asked, "How many are there?" And he told them not to be silent. Noticing this, Park Kyu realized that there were 3 more left. A dialogue broke out on the street and the question of what they are waiting for, to which the answer was, "Calm down. If they go there, they're definitely screwed." Asking if his partner still had tear gas and asking him to throw a couple in there, saying that it is better not to climb into the raccoon's hole, but to smoke it out. After hearing this, Park Kyu noticed that Hong still had brains. That's why he's in charge. Smiling, Park Kyu said to himself that not everything in life goes according to plan. After all, they were on his territory. Seeing that the doors were closed, the bandits got angry, but one said that it was okay. They'll find ventilation and smoke him out. After all, one of them built this bunker himself and noticed that there was only one entrance and exit. They'll find ventilation, throw a couple of grenades, and that's it. A game in which life is at stake. Park Kyu never thought that a fight against ordinary looters would turn into such problems. Walking to the aisle, Park Kyu says in his mind that they don't know something. When Hong and his guys finished the construction, Park Kyu expanded the bunker based on his knowledge. And they, without having the slightest idea about it, walking to the end and opening the secret door, he finished. That they are walking towards their death. The looters who stood at the entrance said that the stubborn guy was caught and still holding on. He said to throw in a couple more checkers, but Park Kyu was already there, the guy pulling out the chick, and before he could throw a grenade, he was shot in the head. All of them were very surprised, and one of them started to give up and ask him not to shoot. Park Kyu asked how many more there were. The man replied that he was the last one, but Park Kyu put the muzzle to his head, after which the man began to nervously say that it was true. There were 5 of them counting with him. Park Kyu ordered him to carry the bodies to the truck. Such a machine gun in his back. Park Kyu noticed something and was very surprised, and he reached into the drawer, to which the man asked what else he needed. Taking out a bloody toy, Park Kyu simply hit the man with the butt. Saying that, what would he explain what they did to the person who made this doll? Did they kill everyone who was in the shelter? The man tried to stop him and said that he misunderstood everything. He got another one. The man started shouting that they hadn't killed anyone, that there was an old man there. And when they got there, he was already dead. They just surrounded the bunker and left, putting your tooth on it. Park Kyu asked this man to take him to that bunker. The place was surprisingly close. 30 minutes by truck. Park Kyu immediately recognized the bunker from the 337th video. "Come," said the man. Looking at the corpse, Park Kyu saw the mark, and it immediately flashed through his mind how it was. A man in white with a pistol fired. He turned around and started to leave. Surprised at how good he was, it was displayed as it was, and the human hunter popped up in my head, and leaving his silhouette from this bunker. After thinking about it, Park Kyu came to the conclusion that this was his doing. Chapter 4. Looking at the corpse, Park Kyu remembered the post, which said, "Got rid of 2 bugs." Park Kyu, thinking that a corpse can tell more than people think, remembering how a subordinate addressed him. "Captain, have you found something? Not only the cause of death, but also the conditions in which the victim found himself at the time of death. The murder weapon as the fatal wound was inflicted." Park Kyu, answering the question that the body is too decomposed, it will not give anything. You can even find out the patterns of criminal behavior. But for Park Kyu, it wasn't scary. since there were still plenty of bodies here, a whole mountain of corpses, including his relationship to death. Distracting from his memories, the man asked Park Kyu if he would let him go. Pointing a machine gun at the marauder, he asked why. He did everything Park Kyu asked him to do, telling him that he had his reasons, that it was all for the sake of the children, and that they would die without him. Pressing down on pity, he asked that Park Kyu did not want innocent children to starve to death, to which Park Kyu replied that he would never spare a marauder who knows where his home is. Well, he had already heard that excuse. Another corpse in an empty shelter. Park Kyu has lived in the bunker for so long that he began to appreciate the warm and fresh air. A little respite from the cold and worries. Blissful tranquility under the light of the sun. Heaven on earth, but you have to pay for everything. When Park Kyu saw the quadcopter in front of him, he was surprised. But even in a dying world, the rate is very high. A user with the nickname Dongtanmum messages from the forum said that the guy saw some kind of flying thing the other day, which turned out to be a drone. After a while, someone tried to get into his bunker by welding. Now he is hiding in a high-rise building in the south of Dongtan. The actions of local riders were reflected in a series of posts by one survivor, and since he had no means of self-defense, he was going to blow up the entire Dongtan if he had no other choice. This post, which contained information about the looters, as well as the misadventures of Dongtan's survivors, attracted everyone's attention, and a frightening truth was revealed to them. That the looters are becoming more inventive and insidious, and they can also sit on long live the apocalypse. And the information that everyone needs to survive may one day be their undoing. On this day, each of the survivors realized one thing. No matter how you look at it, they will have to fight for their lives. Over time, group survival has become more and more popular. The survivors began to prepare for potential battles among themselves. Well, Park Kyu, of course, thought absolutely differently. You can win once, even twice, but the root of the problems will not go away. There will always be human selfishness. This is the root of all the troubles. A large group is easier to spot and easier to track down. And if they are attacked by a stronger group, then right is gone. Armed conflict is an extreme measure. The best way to survive is stealth, and in this regard, you can't find a better territory than Park Kyu. There is so much nothing there that neither looters nor tramps need to come here, and a pack of mutated wild dogs recently settled there. No one would envy those who go there. They say that radioactive zombies began to appear in the city nearby, which the survivor shoots off with a sniper rifle. Well, do not forget that there is always a bigger fish. Looking at the camera from the drone, people did not understand where Park Kyu had gone, and where could he possibly hide in these wastelands? Asking the others if they searched well. Maybe they got the place mixed up. Answering, are there many Air Force bases here? Maybe he's just blind. Telling him to stop scratching his tongue and send the drone away. Speaking of Park Kyu, he's a bastard, and they'll definitely find him to at least beat off the gas. Otherwise, he will deduct from his team. Looking at the camera again, he was surprised to see a woman, and judging by the clothes, an American soldier. Turning to his men, he began to say that our sacrifice was better, and how to deploy it on the set. Wondering what's going on there, he saw a pack of mutated dogs. Tearing his men right in front of him, he got scared and shouted, so that the driver presses the pedal to the floor. To which the driver asked a question, what about the others? They can't be helped anymore. And he wished he hadn't died so early. Crashing into the corpse, the passenger shouted for the driver to watch the road, smashing the windshield with your body. They stopped. The man, looking at the door, was very scared. After all, there was a mutated dog standing there. Without thinking twice, the dog attacked and killed his victims. 458 days after. Information about a group of looters on the outskirts of Gyeonggi-do appeared on the forum. The news appeared a week later. The commotion that Dongtanmum caused slowly subsided. Sitting behind the screen, Park Kyu thought that it was somewhere nearby because of the mutant dogs. And then, I received a hello message from Dongtanmum. Surprised, Park Kyu thought that everyone had already forgotten about him, But Dong Tanmum got in touch again. It seemed like he was trying to get attention again. The post said that this time it was serious, and he asked someone to help and scare them away with something. Otherwise, he would blow himself up. Standing with the detonator, he prayed that his post would be watched. But after the last time, opening the door, the looters shouted that they had succeeded and they had to bring him down. But this time it was serious. There were questions on the forum. Everyone has heard that there was a good bang in the Kwanj area. Dong Tanmum, the fucking storyteller, really died. Park Kyu accepted this information, but he had more important things to do. One threat that is very close. It's time to get to know the neighbors. The girl is looking at the sight of her weapon. Shoots down one drone. Park Kyu walking somewhere. It approaches a dilapidated high-rise building, starting to look at something. Chapter 5. The girl pulling the trigger and firing. A bullet flying into the eye. She killed an infected guy. Park Kyu entered his neighbor's territory. A mad sniper. Leaning over, Park Kyu looked at the asphalt, and I saw a bullet hole in front of my feet. It was a warning shot hole too close to the sighting. It turns out that she has no choice but to shoot. In some ways, she is even more dangerous than Defendra. Park Kyu came here to find out more about the neighbor he found with the help of a drone. Judging by her hair, equipment, and weapons, she was a member of the U.S. military stationed in Korea. At the beginning of the war, the United States, being in the position of the strongest country in the world, intercepted most of the nuclear missiles and defended the main territory. But the problems started later. They have withdrawn their external combat assets, including from Korea, to try to defend against the rifts from which monsters emerge. As long as she's here, Park Kyu won't be able to take full control of the BCC base and quietly engage in exploration. He would like, of course, to avoid clashes with trained soldiers. But if someone enters his territory, that collision cannot be avoided. He will not live with the threat at hand. 481 days after. Park Kyu followed her patterns of behavior. The shooting stops every day around this time. She's probably going to bed. The only time Park Kyu could get close to the building. The entrance is blocked by a barricade, so the best option is to get inside quietly, through the roof of another building. Climbing the building, a small part of it collapsed. After looking at this, he continued to climb. Getting to his feet, Park Kyu got ready, took the weapon in his hands. I looked around, but there was no one there. Moving forward, he remained alert. Climbing the stairs and looking around at everything around you. The upper floor, the door behind which the sniper's hiding place is. On the way there, Park Kyu did not meet anyone. Opening the door, Park Kyu saw a silhouette in a sleeping bear. She was sleeping as he thought. It's even good if you can avoid it. From behind, Park Kyu lowered his weapon. Lowering the weapon and raising his hand in a sign of peace. Park Kyu realized in his mind that she had noticed him and decided to ambush him. She sounded like a young woman, most likely the one he saw from the drone. She was telling him one last time to put the weapon down on the floor. She was standing relatively far away. The trunk is quite long, definitely not a gun. But she lost her guard. You cannot talk to the enemy until he is completely neutralized. Park Kyu grabs her weapon by the muzzle. But she started shooting too late. Getting into his doll, Park Kyu continued to move towards her, hitting her under the knee. Screaming in pain, the girl began to reach towards her weapon. Park Kyu stepped on her back, pointing a gun at her. He said he didn't want it to happen like this. Initially, he only wanted to know how many people were here. But while inspecting the building, he came across an arsenal, and he doesn't want the local looters to ever get to him. Telling her that if she wanted to survive so badly, she should have stayed quiet. The blame for her indiscretion lies solely with her. The girl screamed at him not to look there. When he heard that, he turned around to see if there was anyone else here, and he shouted, "Don't come near." When Park Kyu saw the child, he was surprised. This girl was this girl's daughter. A child, Park Kyu thought in surprise. But the girl, fearing for her daughter, broke free from Park Kyu's grip. He was surprised because he thought he had put in enough effort, and she can still resist. I had to get rid of her before she was ready. Park Kyu was surprised because the girl rushed to the child. At first, Park Kyu thought she would jump for the rifle. It would increase her and her daughter's chances of survival. Nevertheless, she acted differently. She's not crazy, Park Kyu thought. She just found herself in a wild jungle. How could she protect her daughter when she found herself in a foreign, ruined country? The answer is simple. Pull the trigger at the first threat. Knocking the gun out of the girl, he says that the land is his. And don't let her go there, otherwise he'll kill her. It's better that she sits here and looks after the baby. Well, she should understand that. The girl asked if there was a cure. When he saw the girl's wound, he understood why she was moving so slowly. Throwing antibiotics and anti-inflammatory drugs at her, he said that it should help, so that she would accept it as an apology for the intrusion. But she said that wasn't it, and she meant it. What if he has drugs? Repeating my question about drugs. Of course, you can understand it in such a situation. You want to find any comfort, even if it is illusory. But drugs are not a cure for all diseases. Park Kyu doesn't recall them helping anyone. By asking the girl if she knows Korean, from that day on, he began to support them. I regularly gave them painkillers and skimmed milk at the agreed place. There have been noticeably more shots fired in recent days. Thinking that the frequency of shots is very high, but it doesn't look like a shootout. Even that day, it was clear from her that she was already completely on the verge. She doesn't hit the enemies in her sights, but the demons in her head, seeing the light that shone into his eye from nearby knowledge. He arranged to meet Morse code there. Walking to the place, a girl called out to him, and she said that her mother was ill. She escorted him into the building, and he would never have guessed what was waiting for him there. The entire shelter was littered with all sorts of American symbols. Patriotism is the only substitute for drugs that she could come up with. How touching it is, telling him that they have an RPG. Both day and night, they stick like that. Looters flocked to the sound of gunfire, and her leg was getting worse and worse because of the delayed treatment, telling him that she was so homesick for family, friends, and native language. But her home was across the ocean. Looking at the sunset, her daughter calmed her down, but she asked him again if he had drugs. Remembering the picture of a mother with a child, he replied, even if there were, he wouldn't give it. No matter how much you run away from reality, the problems will not go away. He can only help her a little. But for that, he needs a weapon. Park Kyu waited for the rain. There is no better moment to leave his territory. Heavy rain limits visibility, and the cold makes people huddle in groups around the fire, noticing that the missiles must be here somewhere. They have the advantage in numbers. The people sitting near the campfire noticed something. One of them turned around and saw a rocket flying at them. That's why Park Kyu had to reduce their number as much as possible with the first attack. The chain of explosions was moving in a good direction. But more survived than he expected. But this did not stop him, and he began shooting at those who tried to escape. Killing everyone he saw, Park Kyu continued to fire. One of the people noticed him and ordered everyone to shoot at him. By ceasing to fire, they wondered where he had gone, not understanding how many of them and whether anyone saw where he ran away. Answering that there are not many of them. One ordered me to go after the guys from Kafan. They have to resolve this issue before dawn. But Park Kyu's shot killed the one who gave the orders, and then the second one. Park Kyu understood why they were so drawn to the light in a tense situation. But this way they only get more exposed. And he was very cold while waiting in the pouring rain. So I was going to figure it out quickly, just like the person who asked him to do it. He misses his home very much. When it was over, Park Kyu called both of them into the bunker. Standing in front of the toilet, the girl asked why it was in the very center. To which he replied that she should sit next to her mother and not ask him questions. The rewinding of the girl's leg was already over. He was doing exactly the video, so everything should be fine. He doubted very much that she would feel better immediately. He could only heal the external wounds. But the soul is not so easy to cure. But he found a miracle cure for Mad Sniper for her. It was the English forum, Long Live the Apocalypse. The American domain is the main one, and there are many times more users there. When she saw it, she asked what it was. It has something to do with the states. Park Caillou replied that it was natural and asked her to write something. By writing my first message, "Hi guys," with a bracket. They started asking her why she was smiling. She's new or something. Time passed inexorably. It's already the second Christmas after the apocalypse. The free game, Steal the Christmas Tree, made by a former developer, has gained popularity. The Park Caillou tree was almost empty and was not popular, but the trees of famous users were inundated with comments. Park Caillou did not expect anything else from the Defender a Christmas Tree. Suddenly, he was asked on the radio if he could hear Skelton. Park Caillou asked Sue how her mom was doing, to which Sue replied that her mom had dozed off, but she wanted to ask Park Caillou for a laptop to count down with people from North America. The girl is called Rebecca, and her daughter is Sue. After that incident, Park Caillou began to keep in touch with them all the time. When he told them his name Park Caillou, they heard, "Fuck you." So he settled on his nickname from the forum. When he finished remembering, he said he would bring it. He was about to turn off the connection, but Sue stopped him. And Sue wished a Merry Christmas to Mr. Skelton. "And you too, girls," Park Caillou replied, hoping that everything will be fine with them. Chapter 7. The inscription John Lennon appeared on Park Caillou's Christmas tree. Park Caillou would never have thought that he would see this nickname again. Thinking about who drew a parallel between them and why, Park Caillou knew who this ghost was, and very well. 945 days before. Long Live the Apocalypse, an online community of people waiting for the end of the world. Its servers are located on a separate satellite, and there is even illegal information there, which is justified by its subject matter. The largest anonymous information resource dedicated to the apocalypse, which is used by people from all over the world. At least that's how he was promoted. But there are only rich people sitting there, and initially, Park Caillou couldn't afford a subscription. Wondering if it even makes sense to spend money to read the show-offs of the rich. Initially, Park Caillou started using the forum because it was difficult to cook alone, but no useful information was found, thinking that it would be better for him to invest money in a bunker. But when he saw something interesting, he was surprised. But he came across an article by John_Lennon about the necessity and use of fake bunkers. When it came to long-term survival, the tactical and strategic advantage conferred by fake bunkers is difficult to overestimate. They can be connected to the main bunker and used with a main bunker for reconnaissance and surveillance purposes, or simply mislead the attackers. The fake bunkers should have been mined in advance. If the enemy occupies the bunker, it will be possible to get rid of all the attackers by pressing one button. And he had a lot of thoughtful ideas in his articles. His philosophy of survival was similar to Park Caillou's, but the ideas are much more inventive. John Lennon. What is he doing now anyway? The community has its own star. He stood out for his amazing knowledge in all matters. And, of course, people became interested in his personality. And he replied to the forum users that John Lennon's personality is a hunter. About 10 years ago, strange phenomena began to appear all over the world, which people called faults. Soon, creepy creatures, now known as monsters, began to appear from the cracks, to which each country has taken care to create detachments to fight them. They were hunters, monster fighters. A large monster was spotted. The invasion is beginning. A monster attacking 4 people. I didn't expect them to fight back with weapons, which it responded well to. Seeing the opening rift, the man said only one word, "They're coming," and everyone immediately prepared for battle. The identities of hunters of the highest category are kept as a state secret. After all, each of them is an elite soldier who has gone through countless training and battles. And judging by Lennon's license, he's not one of them. But the hunter's certificate raised his authority even higher. Broad knowledge corresponding to his position. Hunter's ID, everything was at its best for him. and he very quickly became the most famous figure in the entire community. But if only it were that simple. He became the most popular and influential person in the entire community. But popularity does not come alone. Envious people who pressed his posts with all their might. But all their attacks were so baseless that they did not leave a stain on his reputation. Park Kaiyu thought that John Nenon was not a fool and would not answer them. But what was his surprise when he saw his answer? And not at all the way Park Kaiyu intended. Park Kaiyu thinks that John Nenon got hurt because of some nonsense. Is he a complete fool? Park Kaiyu thought. Maybe he wanted to draw attention to himself. But the community reacted extremely coolly. It has surfaced that he has a D rank, the lowest of all possible ranks for a hunter. It would be better if he just kept scribbling information posts. He ruined everything for himself with this Denon, Park Kaiyu thought. But he didn't stop there. John Nenon wanted to meet with the fans. He decided to face the problem head-on. 600 days before, John Nenon said that in real life his name is Ku Sang-hai, and that he was glad to see them all. And, including Park Kaiyu, there were 10 of them. Ordering pork belly and wondering how much his 9 friends would eat. He was on a diet, so he didn't want to eat. But the waitress corrected him that there were 10 of them, and this was an order for 1. To which Ku-san replied that then let's have 10. Ku-san said that he was on a diet, but as soon as the food appeared on the table, he immediately attacked the meat and beer. After that, 2 middle-aged men, who, judging by their clothes, were far from poor, talked and just left. Ku-san, in a fit of conversation, said that the war would begin soon, and China will most likely untie it, because they have serious problems with faults. It is said that one of the internal divisions of China is rioting, ignoring the orders of the center. He was telling things that were known to anyone interested in the issue, and all his information is already 6 months out of date. Ku-san asked Park Kaiyu, "Who is he?" To which he replied that his nickname was Skeleton. Remembering, Ku-san asked how the construction of the bunker at Park Kaiyu was progressing there. To which he replied that he had new problems every day, that he can't find a company that can make good fuel tanks. After hearing this, Ku-san replied that nothing came to his mind. But Park Kaiyu did not expect anything else. After all, Ku-san has neither knowledge nor connections, and there will be no help from him. But Ku-sang asked if Park Kaiyu wanted him to look into the matter, and the answer from Park Kaiyu was of course yes. Then Ku-san decided that he would ask around here and there. Maybe something will come up. Asking Park Kaiyu about the 6 handshake rule and saying that he believes in it. While dialing his boss, Ku-san asked for help from a company that deals with fuel tanks. And thanks to him, Park Kaiyu was able to bring the bunker to mind. Despite the unfortunate first impression, he turned out to be a very useful acquaintance. 401 days before, and he was best at gathering people. After that, he continued to organize meetings, and the last one had 80 people each. More and more people come every time, but they were always talking nonsense, thinking Park Kaiyu that next time he'd better not go. Ku-san, approaching Park Kaiyu, asked for a moment of time. Not understanding what he wanted, they went outside. Stammering, Ku-san said that there was such a thing, and he had a question whether Park Kaiyu was a hunter. Chapter 8. Repeating my question, and whether Park Kaiyu is a hunter by chance. To which Park Kaiyu looked at Ku-san in surprise, and he asked that, but Ku-san had a feeling that he had seen him once. He's pretty sure of it. For a second, Park Kaiyu even hesitated. He could have made something up, but he told the truth, that he's a hunter. But Ku-san has already left. Ku-san was asked where he had run off to. After all, they were already looking for him here from television, telling him that the reporter was already waiting, but Ku-san asked him to wait. To which the man asked that Ku-san was talking to that feather. If it was not so urgent, then you need to hurry, Otherwise, the TV will not wait. Addressing Park Kyu, but before he could say anything, he was interrupted by the question, "Who is he?" and saying that Ku-san has more important things to do. Seeing the beautiful girl, Ku-san quickly switched to her. He simply replied that Park Kyu looked like someone he knew. It was the last live meeting. John Lennon has become a real star. He has performed on many broadcasts, which further strengthens his position. He was there as chairman of Long Live the Apocalypse. Well, as an expert on the issue of the end of the world. Then he started giving lectures. He was monetizing his fame as a doomsday salesman with might and main. He began to conduct special consultations for the rich. He did not just ride the wave, but worked with all his might with the oars and the main springboard for its success. That's how the guys with Long Live the Apocalypse were. Forum users worshipped him as some kind of god. He watched their reactions and began to believe that they would follow him like sheep. That thought buried him. A post in which it was written that John Lennon was just copying everything from the European forum. And as a result, a whole army of couch detectives took up the investigation, and these guys are not to be trifled with. A bubble called John Lennon has burst, and a ton of angry comments rained down on him. At the Park Kyu distance, it started to annoy that John Lennon was everywhere. Therefore, Park Kyu was glad that it ended like this. John Lennon took off quickly, but fell even faster. Well, anonymous people from the forum, who adore bullying, aggravated this even more. He did not try to somehow protect himself from countless suspicions and criticism. The last sign of life that he gave remained forever in the history of the forum, "I am your mother." And so the star of Long Live the Apocalypse faded away. As a result, there was no point in the lawsuit, because the bomb hit before the meeting began. And so Park Kyu is here, and he wonders who drew the parallel between them. It's just a coincidence, or John Lennon himself. Park Kyu wrote to Fox Games that he wants to ask, who left a message on his tree, to which Fox Games said that he would think if Park Kyu told him why. Fox Games, he is a hacker and a former game developer. He made this Christmas tree. That day, Park Kyu didn't even know how it would turn out for him in the end. Fox Games, having found who wrote it, dropped the nickname 180 centimeters. Park Kyu immediately texted him asking who he was, and without remembering that they had communicated before. It's curiosity. An announcement from the National Crisis Management Office. Let the world, in the usual sense, be destroyed, but they are still alive. Countless deaths, a lot of destroyed cities. But their office is reopening its disaster management headquarters ahead of the upcoming elections. The general manager, Lee Sang-hoo, the state is still breathing. The heart of the bureaucracy is beating. Looking at his supplies, Park Kyu realized that there was still 3 days left of water and food. Speaking of purity, he did not place much hope in them. This means that the state will simply fall a little later. But while the concept of nation is still alive in people, Park Kyu can take advantage of it. That's why he was looking for a place for a bunker closer to the cities. Continuing to pack, he took clothes, the most ordinary ones. And after making sure that there was no one near the bunker, he set off on his way. It was time to see what Seoul looked like there now. A year and a half after the fall of the nuclear bomb. The road to Seoul was as boring as possible, but the view of the city itself evoked complex and contradictory emotions in Park Kyu. He missed the old landscape, which was difficult to imagine on these ruins. Park Kyu immediately felt sad, and with it, in the depths of his soul, joy rose, because in the new world he is who he is. Passing by a mountain of corpses, Park Kyu saw them all just being burned. And passing on, he reached the National Crisis Management Office. Once inside, they tried to send him to another window. But he wanted to meet with Director Sang-hoon, saying that he is now dealing with the aftermath of the disaster. asking to be told that Park Kyu was looking for him. They were at a military school together and he would quickly remember him. Chapter 9. The Korean National Crisis Management Office, abbreviated as National Committee, the formation responsible for the management of the country and its restoration. Now, this institution is both the administrative and military center of South Korea. Graduates of the former Hunter Academy occupy key positions there. The manager of the National Committee, a former Hunter, is Lee Sang-hoon, an acquaintance of Director Sang-hoon. Okay, please wait a minute. Lee Sang-hoon doesn't want to see Park Kyu, and it's even completely mutual. But this was done so that the staff on duty would understand that Park Kyu was familiar with the manager. That way he can get inside faster. Approaching Park Kyu, the man asked to talk to him. Park Kyu asked what was the matter. I heard that the man knows that he knows the current situation on the front line. The battles have become more difficult and they lack people, especially people with combat experience. But Park Kyu immediately refused because he had already been suspended from service. He only had a rough idea of the situation he was in. Given the kind of war they are fighting, the quality of the soldiers is more important than their quantity. They stopped recruiting everyone in a row. Now they are looking for courageous, promising soldiers. But anyway, Park Kyu won't sign up for this. Somehow he doesn't want to die on the front line. The man against him heard that he was a hunter. Sighing, Park Kyu asked who sent you. Manager Lee Sang-hoon. To which the guy replied that it was not so, and it was sent by Commissioner Kim Ta-ram. Surprised that Kim Ta-ram is on the National Committee. After all, he hadn't expected to hear that name. Recalling their conversation, Park Kyu told Kim Ta-ram not to even think about other people's opinions. The end justifies the means. That's all the math. At least in the current world. When they enter Park Kyu's office, they say that they haven't seen each other for a long time. She knew him too well, so she decided to get straight to the point. They needed hunters. Jokingly, Park Kyu said that there should be a classic "Why me" here, but thought that there was no point in it. Telling him that he was trying his best to avoid military service, and they had agreed that she would no longer work for the state. By asking him just one question, what does he think? In today's world, do old promises mean something? There is an insurmountable gap between what is desired and what is valid. The difference between the two of them clearly showed it. Saying that's why he left, so he wouldn't do it anymore. Replying that the manager Lee Sang-hoon also sent a request. And he's there too. Telling Park Kyu that he doesn't resent him anymore. At least he's not exactly in a position to do that. The world has changed a lot and Lee Sang-hoon should have taken a higher chair. Saying that Park Kyu knows what kind of situation they are in. And does he know what happens on the front line every day? I know, Park Kyu replied briefly. He just couldn't help but know. That was the problem. Apologizing to him. She asked if he knew the Papung Group. Chairman Ki Pan-ho said that his employees would hunt monsters. But they would need help, so they sent to them. But the problem is, they have nothing to help the Papung Group. She wants Park Kyu to put on a show there, saying that he wouldn't be on the front line while she was alive. Park Kyu just thanked her, noticing that everything has changed one way or another. Everyone except Park Kyu. What will happen to the Keyballs if the end of the world comes? A question that interested all Koreans. But people found Park Chol-chu's bunker. It was a whole closed ecosystem. It's an understandable choice. Park Kyu, surprised that with trillions in the account, you can do this. To abandon the company and the social status to which he devoted his whole life in order to protect himself and his family. The world has fallen, and this is a rational choice. That's what most of the rich did. But, of course, there is always a deviation from the norm. Papung Group has appointed a meeting for Park Kyu. After all, a month has passed since the conversation with Kim Ta-ram. The new headquarters of the company which was designed by a British architect known all over the world. However, the construction was not destined to be completed. The war began. As a result, Park Kyu had to freeze all the way to the 55th floor in a construction elevator. Park Kyu, speaking through his teeth how cold it was there. I went out and went to the meeting room. Previously, only the best of the best could enter there, the top of the South Korean elite. And in principle, nothing has changed. Going inside, he was looking at a man who didn't even look back at the one who came. After seeing his worker's ID, but not understanding what the point of it is when there is no internet, and it's interesting, they still get paid. Turning to Park Kyu, the man said that he had heard that Park Kyu used to be a hunter. Remembering Park Kyu, he decided to say hello to the man. But he, interrupting him, simply asked what his rank was. Surprised that he asked it straight out like that, he replied that he was a D rank. Continuing the questions, the man asked if Park Kyu had combat experience, to which he replied that there had been a couple of sorties, but he was not the captain. And in which countries, continuing to pour out questions, Korea replied. And what information do you have about faults? But according to him, he did not really imagine everything. Park Kyu answered everything that came to his mind so as not to end up at the front. Notifying that everyone is ready, the man asked me to wait for him a little longer. If the word bureaucracy had become human, it would have looked exactly the same. Probably, if all the people working in, well, Park Kyu is simple. Kim Ta-ram has probably already prepared everything. When she arrived at Park Kyu's place, she turned and asked the question that he was a hunter. Is it true? Another person is following a friend, telling that in the industrial complex, a horde of zombies appeared. They tried to get people together, but they're not pros. That's why they asked for help. Most of the people who defended the complex died. What nonsense. Even now, when everything is literally flying into the abyss, people are sacrificing for the benefit of the company. In a fallen world, what could be achieved through loyalty to the company? Asking for him because her father was still there, as were many. Her father's name is Kai Chang-soo. He is a representative of the subcontractor company to which the team will be sent. She heard that he was still alive, and she promised that she would try to repay him in full. So, begging to save her father, calling out to Park Kyu that it was time for them to go. Park Kyu asked where they were going, but the answer was that he would find out on the spot. Speaking in advance, Park Kyu couldn't promise anything. After all, hunters are not gods, and ordinary people will not understand this in any way.